everybody, Brian Zane here with another classic pay-per-view review as nominated by my Patreon backers. I sound very chipper and excited right now, but I guarantee you by the end of this review I will sound very much the opposite of that because, you know, this next pay-per-view, it's definitely, there's no reason to have it right now this time of the year because it's not an anniversary, we're not even in October, but you know what, it's my channel and I feel like making it kind of spooky every once in a while, but boy, I might regret doing this one. It's Halloween Havoc 1991 from October 27th at the UTC Arena in, pardon me boy, is that the Chattanooga Shit Show? Tennessee. Adam Bodges, Timothy Baker, and Jesse Alvarez all nominated this show on patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret. Now in the past, I've reviewed some WCW 91 shows. Super Brawl and Great American Bash immediately come to mind, but this one to me feels like it's the worst of them all. Maybe it's because it's been a long time since I reviewed those, so my memory of that is kind of faint, but this one, I mean, the other two shows didn't take me 3 sittings across 3 days to get to like this one did. This was a hard one to get through for a variety of reasons, but man, I'm here now and we're just going to try and get this thing through. 8,500 people attended the UTC Arena here. Not bad considering this show is also in direct competition with an NFL game between the Giants and the Redskins, which was the biggest game of that season, and Game 7 of the World Series all happened on the same day. So pretty good turnout, all things considered. Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone are on commentary here. Kind of a dream team, as it were. Let's just talk about the state of that set, by the way. This is not the same stuff we'd see in Halloween Havocs like 97, 98, the big spooky ghoul, the giant tombstones, the pumpkin and everything. No, this is like a school play haunted house. Look at that set. Oh my God. The tombstones, by the way, reading things like Bear, he was full of hot air. Here's Mike, he lost it on his bike. Here lies Bill, buried deep beneath this here hill. Christy, she left our eye all misty. And finally, Min Twins, which is a reference to the World Series opponents of the Atlanta Braves, another Turner property like WCW. However, in ironic twist of fate, it was the Twins that beat the Braves in Game 7 of the World Series that night. So according to JR and Schiavone, Barry Windham was originally scheduled to be part of the Chamber of Horrors match, but he's been taken out of the match with an injury, and they show a clip to explain what happened. So earlier in the day, Eric Bischoff, little young Eric there, he is outside the parking lot waiting for wrestlers to arrive. We see Cactus Jack and Abdul the Butcher roll up in a Lincoln Town Car. Then Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes pull up. Larry Zbyszko and Arn Anderson, the Enforcers, the tag team champions, they jump Barry, they slam the car door in his arm, and so Dustin has to drive him to the hospital. So he's written off of the show and the match. Boy, Barry Windham dodged a bullet here, because if he was going to be in the Chamber of Horrors match, he should be glad that he wasn't, because the show opens up with the Chamber of Horrors match. So nice then to get the real main event of this show out of the way opening here. It's an 8-man match. It's in a big giant Thunderdome cage. There's instruments of torture in there, and the object is to put your opponent in the chair of torture, an electric chair, and pull the fatal lever, which will render one of the teammates, according to Gary Michael Capetta, helpless. In other words, dead. You're going to kill your opponent by electrocution is what the goal of this match is. Oh goody, I've never actually seen this match before. I've always heard about the Chamber of Horrors match, how bad it was and everything. A lot of people have said it should have been in my worst gimmick matches countdown several years ago. After watching this, I kind of agree with them because this was, woo boy, let's just get it over with. First, what's with the order of introductions in this matchup here for this 8-man tag? You have 1 guy from Team 1, 3 from Team 2, 2 more from Team 1, the last guy from Team 2, then finally Sting at the end for Team 1. That makes absolutely no sense. So who of all these people is actually replacing Barry Windham? Because it's not made clear the entire time. The action starts all over the place, in the cage, on the ramp. Rick Steiner grabs the chainsaw, but he can't get it to work, just leaves it there. This whole thing's a big clusterfuck. You know, honestly, except for me, Elegante and Abdul the Butcher, everyone in this match is a good to great worker, but they are being totally hampered here by a silly gimmick match where all they can really do is throw punches and kicks and use weapons, and that's the name of the game, so they're not really getting to show their strengths on display here. We also get our first glimpse of the referee camera. It predates the GoPro essentially, but it's a really bad concept. It's not executed very well at all in this show. We'll see it multiple times across this show. Some random guy in a mask falls out of one of the caskets in the ring and Scott Steiner beats him up. It kind of reminded me of like the guards in Legends of the Hidden Temple, but Scott didn't want to give him his half of the talisman, obviously. A few minutes in, as Sting goes after Vader and others are climbing the walls, the chair of torture descends. Cactus takes the Doomsday DDT from the Steiners, always a terrifying looking. Why is everyone so filthy healthy moments into this matchup. Look at Abby's back, look at Vader's shoulders, El Gigante's back. There's definitely some dirt or schmutz floating around in there. Is it pyro residue? I have no idea. Suddenly, a group of what can only be described as zombie orderlies make their way down the ramp with a giant stretcher and just kind of hang out there. A great call by Tony Schiavone. No semblance of teamwork from any team. Cactus is busted open after hitting the cage wall. The masked goon is still in there, just handcuffed to the wall. What's the point of him? Sting hurls Jack out of the ring and he just clips the wall on the way down. Some close calls where guys are being put in the cage, but no one can pull the fatal lever, which, by the way, has been knocked down into the on position and is visible to everyone watching on pay-per-view. So technically, it's a live wire. The chair is active. If you touch it, you should get shot, but no one sells it, of course. Gotta love it. Abdullah and Sting are now bleeding as well in this opening contest. There's more aimless punching and kicking and weapons, but at this point, someone's finally fixed the switch. I believe one of the referees on the outside tried to tape it upright as Jack climbs the cage way too early. He's got to stall forever, because I think what's supposed to happen in this finish is Jack is supposed to believe that Abby has put Rick Steiner in the chair, and so, oh, he's going to throw the switch. But just before he does it, we get a switcheroo, so Rick throws Abdullah into the chair, and then Cactus unknowingly shocks his own partner. We get that, but it's so stretched out, because again, Jack is up there way too early. He's got to stall for time, and then when you see him getting ready to hit the switch, you see him looking back, waiting for his cue, and you can see it's so obvious. He has all day to see what's going on and stop from doing what he's going to be doing. It's a terrific visual. The sparks, Abdullah's selling like a madman from Sudan. He's getting shot, even though the crown's not even touching anywhere near his head. He's still just jolting around from the electrocution. Like I said, tremendous visual, but man, the lengths we had to go to get to that visual are just absolutely absurd. Cactus is stunned over what he did, tries to revive Abdullah, but then Abby wakes up, attacks Jack, then kicks one of the crew members in the head trying to put the ramp back in place, beats up the orderlies, baby powder flies everywhere. 0 stars. I mean, Jesus. How could you give it anything more than 0 stars? I almost gave it a ½ star because of the fact that you've got some pretty good workers in there, and I felt bad for them, like Sting and the Steiners and Vader and whatnot. But it's just, not only is it a badly done and badly executed match, it's just so weird. So many weird things thrown at you in the course of this matchup. The delayed reaction, or the delayed arrival of the chair of torture. You've got the guys in the caskets and masks. You've got the orderlies on the outside. You've got all this shit going on here, and the referee camera too. So many elements just make this such a weird clusterfuck of a match, and it is a spectacle on a grand scale, and it is one of those so bad it's good things, but there's no redeeming this match. It's so bad. And here's the thing, Barry Windham, according to the announcers, was supposed to be in this matchup. So one, again, who was replacing Barry Windham in that match, because they never announced that. And second, had Barry Windham, let's just say, for the sake of argument, we take out the worst worker in that match, El Gigante, and put Barry Windham in his place. Would the match have been any better if Barry were in there, given everything else going on in this thing? I really don't think so. JR and Schiavone are taking all this carnage fairly well. They toss to backstage where we see I'm blah and better than ever. Vampire Eric Bischoff and Missy Hyatt, who I believe is supposed to be a showgirl here. They're bringing out the Young Pistols, and just look at the combined aesthetic of all these people in the shot. It's amazing. The Young Pistols cut a promo on the U.S. Tag Champs, the Patriots, showing some edge and some kind of like snarkiness to their promo. A little bombastic. JR says it's very uncharacteristic of them. Well, by the decree of then WCW President Jim Herd, because it's Halloween Havoc, you gotta have some spooky elements on this show. Obviously, we just saw the Chamber of Horrors match, a very terrifying spectacle in many ways, and then we go to our next match as the Creatures, a pair of masked jobbers who come out to Psychosis's future theme for some reason, versus the very, very, very odd couple of PN News, the rapper, and Big Josh, the lumberjack, the guy who came up with a bunch of bears last time we saw him. What in all the fuck is going on with this team, this matchup? This matchup, they deemed to be worthy of a pay-per-view. What a strange tag team PN and Josh are. It's like, when I first saw them, for some reason what came to my mind was like a prototypical version of Head Cheese. Just like two guys who have no business being together, and maybe if they put some more work and care into it, it might work, but man, these are just two different worlds that make absolutely no sense to me. PN News does his opening rap, and it's kind of like a Run DMC beat, and then the big kicker is not even his lyrics, because we cut to a lady in the front row, Christine Valver, WCW Magazine's PN News Rap Contest winner. There was a contest for someone to write a rap for PN News, and she won, and that was apparently what won. Wow. And according to Tony Schiavone, that's a darn good rap. PN throwing his weight around the match, big belly bumps. Josh does the whoopee cushion, and PN News with the flying fat fuck to win. And there you go. I give it 1.5 stars out of 5 because even though despite all that mess, it's still a far more compelling and competent match than I ever thought possible going into it, so I'll give them credit for that. But my big question is, why is this match even happening? Like, obviously the creatures being there, fine, they're spooky, I get it, whatever. But why is such a random ass pairing of PN News and Big Josh? Like, you just saw an established tag team in the Young Pistols backstage cutting a promo and they were mad about stuff. So have them in a match to establish more of their dominance right after that. Don't just waste them and their shiny glittery gimmicks on a backstage promo. What are you thinking? Here's a welcome respite from the last couple of matches as beautiful Bobby takes on Terrence Taylor with Alexandra York of the York Foundation, where the number one requirement to joining was having a name that ends in a Y so they can snob it up later. Solid and crisp action to start things off, many lovely arm drags. I love the cutoff by Taylor here, dumping Bobby to the outside, decking him off the apron, and he crashes into the guardrail. Gotta check those computer algorithms in the meantime though. A top rope splash and a kick out. Bobby with a top rope sunset flip, but Taylor cuts him off again. Puts the knees up on a Terrence bomb attempt. Big ass neck breaker. Up top, Taylor fights, gets punched off, and a big old bump from that. Alabama jam, picture perfect, and beautiful Bobby wins. Wow, what an oasis we've stumbled upon. After the first two matches were shitty and then okay, and then this one, it's great. I give it 4 stars out of 5. It's the top match of the night by far. Just a great technical matchup here. Just two seriously underrated workers in Taylor and Eden put on a real clinic here. I love this match. Up next, Jimmy Jam Garvin, who's accompanied by Michael P.S. Hayes with his arm in a sling for a kayfabe injury, taking on Johnny B. Bad, who's accompanied by Theodore R. Long. And what an entrance for Johnny B. Bad. Not only does he have the confetti guns on the ramp, then he takes off the robe and changes into a feather boa. That is some style right there. Lots of shtick before this matchup. Hayes pulls his arm out of the sling and bops Bad. Big wink into the camera. Yes, we all got it, Hayes. It's a work. Teddy distracts the referee while Bad chokes out Jimmy Jam. Bad with a top rope elbow drop and a 2 count. I love that camera angle too. They both go for a leapfrog in the middle of the ring and collide in the air. Nice double down. Jimmy Jam hits a very crisp DDT, but Long's on the apron and distracts the ref yet again. Bad gets up pretty quick from the finisher and hits the big left hook. Garvin puts his foot on the rope during the pinfall, but Long pushes it off, and that's 3. I give it 2 stars out of 5. It's a decent match, but for a lot of time early on, I was just confused over who the face and the heel were supposed to be. Obviously, the Freebirds playing to the local crowd, doing the Atlanta Braves pop and everything, but they were doing just as much heelish stuff, if not more, than what Johnny B. Bad and Teddy Long were doing. But I think from what I heard and read, that Michael Hayes was supposed to wrestle Van Hammer later in the night, but they put him into this kind of kayfabe injury in Jimmy Jam's corner kind of position to really help get Jimmy over more as a babyface, because by himself, he probably wouldn't have gotten that kind of reaction. So that makes more sense. But yeah, just more, both sides are being heels in this matchup. Backstage, Missy Hyatt's looking for the WCW Halloween Phantom. Who is the Phantom? Tell us, Bobby Eaton, holding a pumpkin for no reason. Where Dorothy, Myra, and Jack? I want a match I'm gonna celebrate. Women. There you go, folks. Stunning Steve Austin, who's accompanied by Lady Blossom, defends his World TV title against Dustin Rhodes. Stone Cold versus Goldust, everybody. Some good graps and chains to start us off. Oh, these guys are so smooth. Austin with some punches, and Rhodes is now bleeding. Austin works a chin lock, getting some leverage until the referee makes him break the hold. Dustin nails Austin and makes his comeback with minutes to go on the time limit. Lady Blossom slaps Dustin with the referee's back turned. Austin goes for a big sit but gets none of it. Another comeback. Now Austin's bleeding and we've got 2 minutes to go. Power slam by Dustin and a kick out. I think Dustin makes a swear there. The referee's going to hit the 3 count before the count is done, before the time runs out. So Austin has to kick out of what's pretty much a finishing move, and it kind of takes the piss out of that move, but it does protect the finish from going on as planned. The time limit expires. It's a draw. Either way, I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. It's still a really strong match. A bit punchy, a bit too punchy near the end for my liking, but I think they were just trying to fill time by the end to try and meet that time limit draw. And also the finish to me felt a little bit kind of uneven the way Austin kicks out just before time expires. You probably should have stayed down. It would have been stronger, but the timing was a bit off. Those are a bit of nitpicks for me. Otherwise, very good match. Up next, Welcome to Oz versus Bill Kazmaier. No more Oz mask for Kevin Nash. That makes me sad. Kazmaier is a former world champion strongman making his jump into professional wrestling, literally carrying the world on his shoulders. Looks like he's having a hard time of it too. This should be an all-time classic, by the way. Now, they say on commentary it was originally supposed to be Cactus Jack versus Kazmaier, which totally blows my mind. It answers my question from earlier of who was replacing Barry Windham in the Chamber of Horrors match. According to these guys, it's Cactus Jack, but that makes no sense to me because Barry Windham is a babyface at this point. He's riding with Dustin Rhodes earlier in the show. What's he doing on the heel team with Abdul the Butcher and Vader? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Anyway, I can't imagine Jack wrestling Kazmaier, making any kind of better match out of Kazmaier than Nash gets here, because apparently Kazmaier must have skipped the day of training where you learn to hit the ropes. We get the test of strength spot. There's some definite lack of communication going on in this thing. He picks Oz up in a torture rack, and Oz, I guess, submits. And there you go. Half star out of 5. This was an ugly match. It was hard to watch, but if you can believe it, it's about to get a whole lot worse. Heavy Metal Van Hammer with his flying V guitar he didn't actually play versus Pretty Boy Doug Summers, a longtime journeyman wrestler who's a former AWA Tag Team Champion with Playboy Buddy Rose. Apparently Van Hammer was supposed to wrestle Michael Hayes, but as I mentioned earlier, Hayes was removed due to a kayfabe injury and placed in the match at ringside for Jimmy Jam Garvin. Lots of kayfabe people being moved around for injuries and replacements in this show. On this pay-per-view, one of the biggest shows of the year for WCW. Some jackhammer operators for Van Hammer, because construction's kind of like heavy metal, I guess. For a split second, though, I thought they were just tearing down the set. Okay, show's over, we gotta cut this thing off, the show's too bad, everybody out, we gotta tear everything down, get out of here. And we begin things with a clothesline botch, and Summers just trips his way in there. What's going on? Is Van Hammer's not calling good spots? Is he pushing Summers back too hard on the way into the corner? Is Doug drunk? But God bless Van Hammer, though, because he's doing his best to keep the crowd somewhat alive in this matchup. And oh my fucking God, that slingshot suplex finish. He almost dropped Summers on his head. That one's not on Doug Summers. Holy Jesus, thank God that's the end of this matchup here, because otherwise Summers would have been killed in the ring that night. You know what? 0 stars is far too good a rating for this matchup here. For the first time in the history of this review segment, I'm going negative. Negative 3 stars out of 5. How in the blue hell did Van Hammer stay employed by WCW for as long as he was? He was there until the year 2000. He was part of Misfits in Action as Private Stash / Major Stash. Here he is in 1991, stinking up the joint with who is a perfectly capable worker in Doug Summers and nearly killing his opponent on a couple of occasions. I got mad watching this matchup here because Van Hammer had maybe tops 5 moves to execute this thing, and he horribly botched 3 of them. That is inexcusable. No wonder Michael Hayes didn't want to work him on this night. He probably would have gotten killed. Let's calm down for a moment here. Brian Pillman with a promo backstage saying he dedicates his title match tonight to his fans and his family. We then go to see Alexandra York with Richard Morton. Morton says he's lived his whole life as a champion and will become the new light heavyweight champ. We go now to that match to crown the new inaugural light heavyweight champion, a title with some real opportunity for growth at this time in WCW, as Flying Brian takes on Richard Morton. Morton, of course, is a member of the York Foundation, despite not changing his hair or ring gear at all. Nick Patrick is back with the ref cam, referee, whatever we're going to call it, cam. Guys, Tony, Jim, you can't phone this thing in now.
And you see Nick Patrick there with the referee cam, or referee, or whatever we call it. Whatever.
And the first shot, of course, is shitty. Pillman's got an answer for everything Morton's trying to do early on, and what a great shot of Nick Patrick's arm. I love the referee cam. Morton with a big old inverted atomic drop is able to keep cutting off Pillman when he's getting his hope spots in, makes a big comeback starting with an enziguri or a spinning karate kick, as JR would say.
Do some karate!
A shoulder tackle sends both men flying out of the ring. Morton drives Pillman's shoulder into the ring post. Back in the ring, Pillman hits a top rope crossbody, a 3 count that we almost don't get to see because of the fucking helmet cam. Pillman wins and is the first WCW light heavyweight champion. They do show the dive in a replay from Patrick's angle, which that one's good at least. I give it 3 stars out of 5. It's a good match, not quite as good or as intense as the previous other good matches we've seen on this night, but a solid match nonetheless. As for the future of the light heavyweight championship, not a good one to say the least. It would bop around between guys like Jushin Liger, Pillman again, Scotty Flamingo, Domingo, Brad Armstrong. Armstrong was the final light heavyweight champion, and then the title was deactivated in September of 92. So this belt lasted for less than a year. Yeah, light heavyweights were not exactly a focus in WCW where the big boys played. Up next, the Z-Man, not to be confused with myself, taking on the WCW Halloween Phantom. Who is the Phantom, they said. For weeks they were building up to this, going, who could this mysterious figure possibly be? Keep in mind, WCW just spent a lot of 1990 doing this multi-month storyline revolving another masked wrestler, the Black Scorpion, and we all know how that turned out, so let's see how this one unfolds. The Phantom comes out to some spooky organ music. You'd think they'd give him a mask that would better hide his face, and that big burly gives the entire charade away mustache. The Phantom's off to a hot start, and gosh, I just can't tell who this guy with this kind of physique is supposed to be here. He no-sells the Z-Man's dropkick, hits a swinging neckbreaker, which they just call the swinging neckbreaker, to win the matchup here. I give it a half star out of 5. It's a big old squash. I mean, it's just laughable how, A, they're trying to build this whole mystery of who could the Phantom possibly be. The announcers play dumb the entire time, and then you've got the fact the mask just gives it away. It's more obvious than seeing, like, Ric Flair's chin sticking out of the Black Scorpion mask. We know it's Rick Rude, guys. Come on, don't delay the inevitable. Tag team champs versus tag team champs as the Enforcers, Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko, defend the World Tag titles against the Patriots, Firebreaker Chip and Todd Champion, who I've never actually seen in action before. I've always only read about them, seen pictures, so this is a brand new experience to me. I'm looking forward to seeing how these guys are received here in the match. Chip looks good against Zbyszko and Anderson early on. Todd Champion is a bit stiff in the ring. I don't mean that he hits hard, he just looks very inflexible and whatever the opposite of fluid is. Champion somehow doesn't see Zbyszko tag out during a chase around the ring. The heel is taking the advantage. Champion gets worked over here, tries to fight out of the enemy corner. Another blind tag. Champion still looks pretty dumb. Todd blocks a suplex, hits one of his own and tags in Chip, who's a house of fire, so to speak. And he actually looks pretty good here, not to take anything away from him. Champion not so great, but Firebreaker Chip is actually looking pretty competent here. Arn knocks Chip into Zbyszko. Larry goes flying out of the ring, but Chip walks right into a spine buster. The Enforcers retain the championships. I give this one 1.5 stars out of 5. I feel like Arn Anderson, poor Arn, I feel like he's been cursed this entire pay-per-view review series because I don't think he's been in one good match since I've been reviewing these shows. Like, this match, which was probably the best of the bunch, honestly. Then you've got his match with the Renegade. You've got his Doomsday Tower thing in Uncensored 96. Arn's had a bit of a string of bad matches here, but it's a testament to his ability as a worker to keep on going. Eric the Vampire on the ramp interviews Paul E. Dangerously, who's accompanied by Medusa. Paulie's back on TV after serving a suspension for something. The details are sketchy, but from what I've been able to piece together, it seems like he took the fall for some information being leaked about a joint show between WCW and the USWA, and so he denies any wrongdoing, but he took the fall for it anyway. He was suspended. He comes back here on TV and announces war against WCW for treating him the way that he's been treated. He wants to take out all of WCW's heroes, beginning with Sting. He's ordered Medusa to find someone who's capable of taking Sting out. It's the Halloween Phantom. Just kidding, it's Rick Rude. Was there ever any... The dub theme for the network is dominating the audio here as Rude tries to address the crowd. He wants to help Paulie tear WCW down brick by brick, beginning with Sting and that US Championship. This promo, of course, was the genesis of the Dangerous Alliance, Paulie Dangerously's stable, and Rick Rude was definitely the crown jewel of that group. He would beat Sting in 1992 to become the new US champion, hold it for almost 300 days, and then of course you'd have Steve Austin, you'd have Bobby Eaton, you'd have Arn Anderson as part of the group as well, and this team really dominated WCW for a lot of the early 90s, especially in 1992. But this promo with Heyman coming back and Rick Rude coming back here is really the beginning of all that. Main event time, 2 out of 3 falls match for the WCW Championship as Lex Luger defends against Ron Simmons. Of course, Luger won the championship in the much maligned Great American Bash 1991, beating Barry Windham in the steel cage match and establishing a relationship with Harley Race and Mr. Hughes as a result. We get a hype package for Simmons showing Ron back at Florida State to prepare for the big time match, looking at his old jerseys. There they are. Training montage. Bobby Bowden. The package ends in a weird way because we hear in the video package Gary Michael Cappetta introducing Ron Simmons, and then we go to the live feed where Gary Michael Cappetta introduces Ron Simmons in the match. I thought it was going to be a really cool transition where like the video ends, and then we hear Gary's voice chime in as he introduces Ron Simmons. We do a cross dissolve, and there's Ron Simmons in all his glory on the stage. And so we didn't quite get that. It was a bit of a clunkier transition than that. I think it would have been badass if they did that, but you know, that's not exactly what we got. But Simmons looks very strong on the hype package nonetheless. By the way, Simmons is accompanied by Dusty Rhodes in his tie-dye shirt. Lex Luger's got letters, y'all. As the match begins, JR brings up Luger and Simmons' history as teammates in the USFL back in the day. Nice little connection there. Simmons goes for the dropkick and eats it. Luger with the advantage. Here are some of those classic Luger grunts.
The advantage here. Really.
Simmons comes back out of nowhere, hits a big old spine buster, and wins the first fall. Pretty quick fashion there. Dusty and Harley confer with their guys during the rest period, and the body language of Harley Race compared to Dusty's really tells the story here. Ron with a continued advantage as the second fall begins as the announcers make some 1991 baseball references.
Tell you what, it's the bottom of the ninth inning and Steve Avery's pitching, so Luger better bring out the big bats quickly. How about John Smoltz?
Luger evades a Simmons attack. Ron falls to the outside. Luger on the offensive. Not what you would call a scientific match here. Lots of clotheslines, power moves, that sort of thing. Luger wearing his opponent down with a chin lock. Simmons recovers, dodges a running attack, goes for the schoolboy and a kick out. Crowd's alive for Simmons during this match, by the way. He's super over. Race with a trip up on the outside. Dusty comes in with some shots. Luger and Simmons collide in the ropes. Race holds on to Ron, so Luger goes over the top. The referee sees all this, but declares that Simmons is DQ'd for the fall. So now we're even. So Simmons is disqualified in that fall because he apparently threw Luger over the top rope. From this angle, the referee has to see what Harley Race is doing, but nope, it's a disqualification, and Luger's awarded a point. So yes, we got tied 1-1. Luger now bleeding above the eye as the third fall begins. Luger with some cheap shots, but Simmons hulks up. A superplex, a kick out. On the outside, Simmons goes for the 3-point stance, but runs into the ring post. Luger drops him with the pile driver, what they're calling the attitude adjustment. Someone tell John Cena. Lex wins the third fall and retains the championship. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. Like I said, it's not a technical classic. Luger and Ron Simmons aren't necessarily known for being amazing workers, but the story and the physicality and the emotion they're projecting here in this match really sells it for me. And yeah, it's very physical, it's very hard hitting, and so it becomes a very entertaining spectacle for me. Harley Race and Dusty Rhodes being involved also, it kind of makes it almost a little too overbooked, but I think they do a really good job kind of balancing everything in place here. And so the story of Simmons making one mistake too many to lose his shot, it's very well done. Ron would get his time in the sun the following year, not quite yet, but it's a step in the right direction. My final grade for WCW Halloween Havoc 1991 is an F+. There's a couple of good matches, a couple of hidden gems in this show. Terry Taylor, Bobby Eaton, obviously is the best match of the night. The main event with Lex Luger and Ron Simmons, I think delivered in a good way, but man, oh my God, there are some matches on this show that need to be launched into the sun. In particular, the Van Hammer-Doug Summers matchup. That is the absolute fucking worst thing I've ever seen in such a short amount of time for it to be so bad and so dangerous. That was... Oh, like I said, I got angry, legitimately angry watching this show, that matchup there. And of course, Chamber of Horrors, it's so bad it's good, but it's mostly bad. Oz versus Bill Kazmaier, not a great match either. And the whole just like, are they legitimately trying to make it mysterious to who the Phantom is here when it's so obvious from just one look that it's Rick Rude? You couldn't have found a mask that better covered, like, had something kind of to cover the eyes and the mustache and everything, or tell Rick Rude to shave his mustache for this bit. He would shave it later on in WCW. Why didn't he do it here? You know, it's just one of those things, so many different things about this show that really bring it down. And you could have a show that's all Terry Taylor and Bobby Eaton from this show, but some of the bad ones from this show really drag it down. And yeah, that's why I got to give it an F grade. Not even F+, regular straight up F. That's the grade I'm going to give Halloween Havoc 1991. It is a failure. Well, I hope you enjoyed my review of Halloween Havoc 1991. I certainly had no joy in reliving it. If you want to play a role in determining which shows I look at, be they good, bad, or somewhere in between, go to patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret, become a $10 backer or above, and you'll have the chance to nominate classic shows for me to review. Next time on the segment, we're going into WrestleMania season, so we're doing some manias leading up to WrestleMania in Tampa, and next time we'll be looking at WrestleMania 4. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.